College football is back, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a fresh take on college football betting focused on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
Yeah, and it's great to see you again. We're here at week 2 already. I'm JY. This is my good friend Steve. We're going to get right into the picks. I know, unfortunately, we have limited markets again here early on, but I know Steve's going to call every Big Ten game that he can, and I'm going to call every Mountain West game that I can. And I have some other picks, and I guarantee you we got some Big Mountain ice cold locks for you here this week as well. So without further ado, we're going to go right into the Big Ten. Steve, take it away.
All right, let's roll. Okay, so first game, Illinois at Kansas. I'm going to go ahead and take Illinois +3. Illinois kind of struggled week 1. I still believe they have a good defense, and I'm going to go with them +3.
Yeah, I remember you were fairly high on Illinois in the preview video, and I'm not surprised that you took that pick.
Yeah. They struggled against a good MAC team, but I think I'm confident in that Illinois +3.
Yeah, they're getting the field goal there. So.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so moving on. All right, so Purdue at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a 3-point favorite at their place, which basically means it's a toss-up. Honestly, neither one of these teams is very good, but I think Purdue will be motivated after that loss to start to go on the road, and I think they'll be motivated, but I don't think that they have that offensive firepower yet. Hudson Card, their new quarterback, didn't really impress me, didn't show much. Their defense, like we talked about, their defense was not that great against Fresno State,
right.
When we weren't sure how Fresno State's offense was going to be.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead. I think they will be motivated, but I think they're going to come up short. So I'm picking Virginia Tech -3.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so UNLV and Michigan, okay. Same story as last week.
Mm-hmm.
Huge spread, monster spread, 36.5. Again, Michigan is a great team. I'm still very high on them, but I just see, just like last week, I see them getting a lead and then just kind of slowing it down because there's no reason. They have a soft schedule to begin with.
Right.
Their coach is out, suspended. They're already rolling. Their season comes down to what's going to happen at that game at Penn State and when they host Ohio State. So I don't see them covering that, so I'm going to take UNLV +36.5.
And if they're up big early, you got to think they're going to be putting in second, third players. I mean, why risk getting injured? To your point, why risk injuring anybody early on in the season here? I like that pick.
All right, so the next game, Iowa at Iowa State. This is always a big rivalry game every year. I'm still high on Iowa. I like their new quarterback, Cade McNamara, was a transfer from Michigan. He's not going to set the world on fire, but I think he's exactly what they need. He is that stable, dependable, pro-style quarterback. Not going to make a ton of mistakes. Keep the offense moving. I believe in their defense and their special teams. So I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa -3.5 at Iowa State.
Okay, and so you mentioned the offense and the offensive coordinator and the 25 points per game.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that this week?
So, I think that's going to be their target every week. Last week, they came up just short, 24, so they're -1.
1 point short.
I see them getting to maybe like 27, 28, 29 points this week. Just that's going to be their target every week, I think, is to get over that hump. They came close last week. They're never going to be an offensive juggernaut. They're never going to be a team averaging 30 points or more a game.
Right.
But I think they will get just over that, just enough to keep him safe and just enough to cover that 3.5 points.
When I did the under on a game day pick last week with Iowa, and it hit.
Yeah.
The over-under this week, I didn't write it down, but it's in the 30s.
Yeah.
I want to say maybe mid-30s, which is dangerously low for me. I won't be taking, although I would love to go back to that well again, that's just far too low for me to have any sort of action on.
Totally understand that.
Yeah. What you got next?
So last week we had the battle of teams that are no good with Northwestern and Rutgers.
Yep.
This year we have UTEP at Northwestern.
Okay.
So I'm going to go. I think this is going to be a consistent train you'll see me ride all season is for Northwestern to lose.
Okay.
I just think they're just a complete disaster with everything going on. I think they would have been a bad team already, and then with what went down to lose a couple important players, lose their coach. I think that's going to continue.
Yeah.
So I'm actually taking, even though I don't think UTEP is a good team, I'm taking UTEP -1.5.
All right.
So
wow.
Yeah. Okay. So Wisconsin at Washington State. Again, I'm high on Wisconsin. They brought in that new offensive coordinator like we talked about, which was expected to be an air raid style. But I mentioned I think it was the preview episode. Yes, it might be an air raid style, but his particular offense is you use that run to set up the pass.
Right.
Week 1, they had 2 100-yard rushers. They didn't cover the points in week 1, but they didn't need to.
Yeah.
Their offense was clicking, it was moving, they played good defense. It's just a good team, a good coach. And I'm going to go Wisconsin minus 6.5 at Washington State.
Okay. All right. Up in Washington State. And Washington State had a very, very strong first week where they whooped up on Colorado State, as I had mentioned last week. I was anxious to see what Colorado State was going to do, and Washington State took it to them. So it'd be interesting to see how this game plays out, just to see in terms of conference to conference what happens here, because Washington State looked great last week.
Totally agree. And I think Washington State was better than I think most of us expected them last week. But I still think that Wisconsin's about a touchdown better than them, even at their place. So I'm going to go with Wisconsin minus 6.5.
All right. Okay.
Charlotte at Maryland. I was actually surprised we could find a line on that.
That's shocking.
Like we talked about, I think I said in the preview episode, I expected Maryland to start out 4-0, 5-0, rack up those wins at the beginning. They're not a terrible team. They're just not I don't think they're a great team. They're just kind of a mediocre, solid to maybe good team.
Right.
I do think they'll cover against Charlotte. I think their quarterback Talia, Tailova, his last name. Yes, exactly.
TT.
To his little brother.
Yes.
I think he'll have another great game. He had a great game week 1. I think that'll continue, and I expect them to cover. So I'm taking Maryland minus 24.5 over Charlotte.
Well, all right.
So this last one of my regular picks, this was the one I debated the most, and I almost broke down and said, you know what, I'm not going to pick this game. But,
I almost pulled a JY.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But I figured I'm 2 weeks into this, and I said I was going to pick all Big Ten games, so I'm going to pick this one. But I'm not super confident one way or the other.
50-50 here.
Yes,
all
but
right.
So the line is it's Eastern Michigan at Mini. The line is 20.5. Okay. Honestly, I think Mini is a much more solid team than them. Up and down the roster, they're the better team. They're going to win this game. It's just whether or not, last week was Mini in Nebraska, and Mini just didn't have the offense. I think they missed a couple field goals, and they just didn't have the offense to cover the spread against Nebraska. And I'm a little worried that's going to happen this time, but I'm going to go ahead and take Mini minus 20.5. Just because I think they're a much better team than Eastern Michigan.
And I can understand why you're a bit hesitant with that after last week. I think if that last week wouldn't have happened, based on what you said in your preview video, you'd be a little more confident in that pick. But didn't see a whole lot out of the offense there last week. So I can understand your trepidation in terms of making a pick there. But good on you for doing it.
Hey, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Minnie let me down once. Fool me once, shame on me.
So fool me twice, shame on you again.
Yes, exactly. So we'll see how that goes.
That's not how that saying goes, but anyway.
So my last pick is actually going to be an ice cold lock.
All right.
I
love it.
So I teased this pick in our week 1 reaction video.
Right.
I went ahead. I looked at that early line. I teased the early line. And FanDuel at the time was offering Colorado minus 2.5 over Nebraska. And everybody actually was offering at that point. Some of the sites it's actually shifted to 3 or 3.5. But FanDuel, right before we recorded, I looked, they were still offering 2.5.
I would say I looked this earlier today, not right before we started recording, but it was still at 2.5. But you could see it was thinking about moving.
Yeah,
I think it was making maybe negative 120 or something like that.
Something like that.
So it's moving towards that. It's going to get up to the 3.5. Likely by game day.
Nebraska, we talked about this a few times. Matt Rule, great coach. I think he'll be, he's already, I think, ahead of schedule, it looks like, by last week.
Yeah.
As far as rebuilding this team, they played solid defense last week. They were solid running the ball. Their offense, I said before, I thought they had a high school offense, and that's pretty much what it still is. Yeah. Their quarterback, the only touchdown they scored was kind of on a fluke play. The ball bounced on the ground right back in the quarterback's hands. He hits a bomb. I just can't see Nebraska keeping up with Colorado. Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, had a monster game last week. Travis Hunter, the number 1 overall player, followed him from Jacksonville State to Colorado. He played, I think he had like 119 snaps or something crazy. Played both ways, had an interception on defense.
Oh, wow.
And had a monster game, 120, 130 yards receiving with a couple touchdowns. Receiving, he might be the best player in the country.
Yeah, freak athlete.
Exactly. So I just can't see Nebraska keeping up with Colorado scoring. So I'm going to go ahead and give a Big Mountain ice cold lock for Colorado -2.5 over Nebraska.
Fantastic. And some of you maybe are lucky. Steve did make that original call on our preview or our rapid reaction video a couple days ago. Fortunately, the line's still there, and they can still have it. I know you're pretty confident in obviously making it a lock. You're very confident in
Definitely.
that. I like that pick too. I'm not gonna make the call because you did it, but that's a great pick. So, Steve, with that, I think does that do it for your picks this week?
That's it for me. What do you got for us,
So let's do a quick summary.
Okay.
Go down through them real quick. We'll throw them up on the screen so people can remember exactly what you're doing, so they can make some money off of Steve's picks. So here they are. Why don't you go for it, Steve?
Okay. So just to go down these real quick, I have Illinois +3 over Kansas. I have Virginia Tech -3 over Purdue. UNLV +36.5 over Michigan. Iowa -3.5 against Iowa State. Northwestern, actually I'm taking UTEP -1.5 over Northwestern. And I'm taking Whiskey -6.5, 6.5 points over Washington State. Maryland -24.5 over Charlotte. And Mini -20.5 over Eastern Michigan. And then my Big Mountain ice cold lock is Colorado -2.5 over Nebraska.
Excellent. Sounds good. Well done.
Yeah. How about you, JY?
All right. Well, well, unfortunately, many Mountain West teams don't have lines to take. So there's no line for the San Jose State game, for the Wyoming game, for the Nevada game, for the Fresno State game, for the Hawaii game, for the Utah State game, and for the New Mexico game. Now, I will say, if any of these teams get lines prior to kickoff or on Saturday, I'll likely do a game day pick. I'm going to do game day picks anyways. You saw I've done them for the first 2 weeks. I will be doing game day picks. I'd love to pick a few of these teams. I know some of them are going to have big spreads, but I would take them because they will beat some of these teams that they're playing. Just can't do it today. So I will pick the 4 that do have lines right now. And I'm going to come out of the gate swinging with an ice cold lock.
Ooh.
Yep, I'm not messing around.
All right.
And it's actually a game. This is 2 weeks in a row that you and I are calling a similar game. We've got a Mountain West team playing a Big Ten team.
Okay.
That's going to come to an end, but we got it again this week, and it's the UNLV at Michigan game. Completely agree with you. I like the +36.5. You did it last week. You talked about Michigan and why you think that they're going to be within, or the other team's going to be within the spread there, and Michigan not hit it. I completely agree with you again this week, and I will say I don't think UNLV's that bad of a team. I have them at 600 on the season. They've got a good quarterback. He's got a lot of experience there, and so I think they're within that. So I'm gonna lock it. Not only did we both pick it, but I'm gonna lock it too. And just so everybody knows, Steve and I don't show each other's picks prior to this, so the reactions that you're getting from us are legit reactions. And I didn't know he was picking that, and so there we have it. I'm locking that one. The next one we have at 7 o'clock. So 3:30 is the UNLV Michigan game. Everything else, of course, being the Mountain West, is going to be 7 o'clock or later. 7 o'clock, we've got 2 games. We've got UCF at Boise State, and we've got UCLA at San Diego State. I'm high on both Boise and San Diego State this year, and I'm going to take them both. So I'm going to take Boise State +3.5 at home. I'm thinking they're going to have a bounce back game after the somewhat disappointing showing in Washington. I talked about how good Washington's offense is. Little surprised how far that spread got to, but still Boise State, very solid team. So I'm betting on a bounce back game from the Broncos there. So I'm taking them at +3.5. And then San Diego State right now is +14.5. Real happy to take the 2 touchdowns with them. And again, taking San Diego State against UCLA at +14.5. And then the last game I'm able to take is Air Force at Sam Houston. That line right now is -13.5. And I'm taking Air Force at -13.5. A lot of these halves are on the side that I like them. I just talked about a +14.5. I like that. This one's a -13.5, and I like that. I think Air Force wins by 2 touchdowns. Frankly, I think I could see him winning by 20 here. So because of that, I'm throwing down my second ice cold lock here with the Mountain West. So I'm going to lock Air Force at -13.5. So that's 2 out of 4 ice cold locks on my Mountain West teams.
Awesome. Love it.
So with that, because I can only pick 4,
Yeah.
and I got to throw more picks out there. I mean, this is about making picks and making some money for people. I've got some other bets. I've got 5 other bets that I want to throw out for everybody. So the first other bet that's out of conference for me, out of the Mountain West Conference, is going to be the Utah and Baylor game.
Okay.
And Steve will know that I was very close to picking Utah this past week 1. I'm kicking myself that I didn't pick them because I wanted to pick them. I was fairly confident that they were going to win that game. They easily beat the spread, and I won't let it happen twice, and I am picking Utah.
You were on that game all week. You had it pegged. I think I might have put some doubt in your mind because of the quarterback situation. That might have been what kept you from pulling the trigger, but you were on that game all week. You were on Utah, and you were absolutely right.
I had known about the quarterback situation, and that's the thing that's tough with some of this is when you have a starting quarterback that's questionable, especially early on in the season.
Yeah.
You don't know what exactly is going to happen. So I guess that was the piece that I just held off on, but I was very confident in that Utah team. So anyway, Utah at -7.5 at Baylor. So that's the piece that's a little questionable for me, but I still like the Utes here. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. I'm taking Utah -7.5.
I like the pick. I don't think it's questionable at all. So far, Baylor has not looked good this year so far, and Utah has looked like a very, very good team yet again. So I love it. I love the pick.
They're out to prove points and taking no names and just going for it. So I'm on Utah. Hopefully they don't let me down. I missed them last week, but we're going with them this week. The next one I have is Tulsa at Washington. So I brought up Washington earlier. Really impressed with their offense. I knew they'd have a high-powered offense. A bit of a large spread here at -34.5. But I'm taking Washington to beat Tulsa in Washington. I think they keep rolling that offense. They are going to score points, no doubt about it. At -34.5, I'm in on Washington. And yeah, I liked them last week. I hope I keep liking them this week.
So if I could add a couple points there.
Yep.
So the big difference between Washington and what we talked about with Michigan with those large spreads. One, Washington's offense is centered around Michael Penix, really good quarterback. They're not just the running game. Whereas Michigan is focused, their offense is mostly focused on their 2 awesome running backs. They do have a good quarterback, but Washington is fully invested in Michael Penix because of my second point. They're trying to push him as a Heisman Trophy candidate. And what's the best way to do that? Have a great stat line and buy a ton of points. So I like it.
Yep. All right, 3 more. Now we get again into the evening games. And I have been betting Oregon for 2 years, and I'm going to let you know, everybody, Oregon typically lets me down. I'll bet them, and I'll lose, and I'll stay off of them, and they'll do good. I'm going back to the well, and they let me down again. So I'm going to give you that warning right now as I get into the Oregon versus Texas Tech game. Oregon right now is a -6.5. I get that it's at Texas Tech. We did a whole episode on the Wyoming-Texas Tech game.
Yeah.
And the fact that Texas Tech scored 17 points in the first quarter against Wyoming and then didn't score again until they had to kick a field goal with 41 seconds left in the game is very worrisome for me for that offense. Now, Wyoming has a great defense. Yes, they were at Wyoming. I mean, there's intangibles there. I get it. But at a touchdown with an Oregon State team that can have the offense that they have, again, the intangible that worries me is that they're in Texas Tech. But I'm really wondering how Texas Tech is going to handle this. I mean, major adversity to start the year. Guaranteed none of them thought they'd be leaving Laramie 0-1.
And the potential to go down 0-2.
And potential to go down 0-2. Oregon knows that. Oregon's seen tape on what Wyoming did. I'm taking Oregon in here all day, and I'm locking them.
Wow.
Okay. Ice cold lock.
All right.
Oregon Ducks over Texas Tech -6.5.
I love it. I think Oregon is a borderline elite team this year.
Yep.
They will contend for a college football playoff spot. Bo Nix, he had his struggles in Auburn, but since he's been there, he's been great. He's doing exactly what they needed them to do. I think they just scored over 80 points this last week against, it was only Portland State, but still, their offense was just amazing. They're a great team all around. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that the line is only that
shocked
small.
as well.
So I think that's a great one to make a big mountain ice cold lock.
With that line, I thought I got to make that a lock.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised coming out of week 1 that it's under a touchdown. So
I love it.
I'm hoping for the best there. All right, 2 more. The last one, here's a real wing dinger. I got, wing dinger. I used that earlier in the week.
Yeah.
I got a Big East team versus a Sun Belt team.
Okay.
Because it's fun.
Okay.
So I've got the UConn game at Georgia State.
Okay.
UConn, not a great team.
No.
I've been watching Georgia State. Now, every team's different, obviously. Every year, you lose players, things change. But I've been watching this Georgia State team for about 3 or 4 years now. And they're typically fly under the radar-ish. But they've got a solid program down there. Mm-hmm. The line right now is -2.5 at home for Georgia State against UConn. Yes, okay, they're Big East. I don't care. I'm taking the home team. -2.5. Give me Georgia State.
Yeah, I like it. UConn still plays in the Big East basketball conference, but they're an independent now as far as just in football.
Right. So I should have been more clear. But
yes. But I like it. UConn is just not a good team, and I agree with you on what you said about Georgia State. I think their program, they've struggled for a while, but they are building something there, whereas for me, it feels like UConn is still just on that downward trajectory, so I like the pick.
Okay. Last one. I got to have a late game. I have to have a late game, being the Mountain West guy. My latest Mountain West game is at 8 o'clock, so I have a 10:30 game here. I'm going back to the well. Stanford at USC.
Oh, boy.
USC's done well for me here to start the year. I'm going to keep riding them until they prove me wrong. So I'm actually going to take the over.
Okay.
Ready for this number.
Okay.
69.5.
Is that the total game or
total
just
game?
USC,
Total
USC?
game. Total game. Yeah, not just USC. Although I bet you they're down closer into the 60s.
Yeah.
So yes, over for the total game, 69.5. That's my pick on that. Let's throw the ball. Let's score some points. Let's make this sucker a 55-35 game. Walk away a winner.
I like the pick, and I agree with you that USC might press 60. Now the question is, if they do, let's say they hit 60, is Stanford going to score 10? That's the question. Yeah. No.
Hey, if it's 10 meaningless points in the last 5 minutes of the game, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I like it. USC again, another one of those college football playoff contender teams, definitely an elite offense.
Yeah.
The best quarterback in the country. I think most people think we're the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, and he's got weapons all over the field. Their offense, and I think we've already talked about this a couple times now. They were maybe a little embarrassed week one that they didn't do a little bit better against San Jose State, and the defense is still a little embarrassed about that. And so I think they're just going to want to come out there and just absolutely crush Stanford.
Well, then let me ask you then. So they let up 24 against San Jose State. You don't think they're going to let up at least 10 against Stanford?
Oh, they probably will.
Okay,
I was more just kind of taking a shot at Stanford.
I got you. Okay, all right. Well, you can take a shot at Stanford all you want.
Exactly.
But, I like the over there. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. So that's it. Would you like me to summarize them, Steve?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's summarize them. So I got the UNLV Rebels at plus 36.5. I've got Boise State at plus 3.5. I have San Diego State at plus 14.5 and Air Force at minus 14.5. So if you notice, I'm picking all Mountain West.
Yep.
Yeah. That won't happen every week, but it's happening this week. Then in my other picks, I've got Utah at minus 7.5. I've got Washington at minus 34.5. I've got Oregon at minus 6.5. Georgia State at minus 2.5. And USC Stanford game to be over 69.5. And just as a reminder, my ice cold locks, to which I have 3, are UNLV, Air Force, and Oregon.
Okay, I like it. So those were JY's picks. We already covered my picks earlier. So that's going to be our Week 2 Big Ten and Mountain West picks. Please look for, we do have an NFL preview show coming up that we're excited about. Yep. So look for that. That should be our next episode coming out. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get the notification that you see that. So we're real excited. It's going to have a little bit of, it's an NFL preview show, but it's going to have a little bit of flavor of the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve. And we just want to remind you, we have a lot of episodes coming up. We just dropped our second expansion video. So if you're interested in expansion and realignment, please check that out. After week 2, we always do rapid reactions. So we'll go back over the picks that we made, what went right, hopefully a lot more than what went wrong. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.